Hello there, sword friends. Today I have the pleasure of telling you about this sword right here. This is Moonlighty Knight, or perhaps Moonlight Spirit. I'm not sure exactly which name it will go with. I will tell you a little bit. The mystery man in black is the one who mounted this up. I'm very happy with how it came out. I'm even happier with how it feels, honestly. But he dubbed it Moonlighty Knight, and I have to give respect to the artist there. The mystery man in black got the pieces from me, but how this all came out is really his imagination. The Moonlight Spirit, though, is I think maybe paying homage to both. A while ago, I had these fittings right here, and I'll tell you about the fittings, but effectively I had this Fuchi kashira and then saw this Tsuba from Sword Trail Alfredo at Bloodline Customs. Bloodline Custom Katana, I believe, is the name of where you can get it, and I'll talk about it in a moment. But I saw this cool looking Tsuba that reminded me of a game called Ninja Spirit I used to play on the TurboGrafx 16, like something about the clouds and the crescent moon. Even though that imagery isn't exactly in the game, it reminded me of that Ninja Spirit game that I used to play as a kid. Anyway, it also really fit with the set of Fuchi kashira that I have, and maybe I'll start there. The Fuchi kashira are pieces perhaps from the recast Japanese fittings would basically be what they are, but they're in this weird shape that I never really quite understood what it was. It has this pill shape, and I've come to see them now as clouds after looking at this Tsuba. It's kind of this obscure shape, and I never found a Tsuba that quite meshed with it, but they're the right size for a modern blade. So I've kept them around for a number of years. And then this Tsuba came around, and sword friend Alfredo at Bloodline Custom Katana was inspired by this classic Tsuba that he found from the Bushu school, I believe is how it's pronounced. But it has these pill-shaped clouds over a crescent moon, and I don't know, the imagery just reminded me of some of the games I used to play as a kid and some of the Japanese imagery. It's not something that you see, at least in a lot of artwork today, but it looks really cool, and it's a little different, and it matched these Fuchi kashira that I have. So I reached out to him and said, hey, I want one of those. How much would it be? And he was able to make me a Tsuba that I think is really quite nice, and a set of Menuki. I'm not sure how much they would normally be. I want to say I got like a buddy price, an early adopter, maybe make a video, give me a good deal kind of price. But I want to say that they would probably be like under $600 or around $500, at least for what I'm doing. He also can make Fuchi kashira. He didn't in this case. I had them, and that's part of why the project was thrifty and came together reasonably well, as I had fittings that I thought thematically blended really well. There are some things that I think I'll grow to like, but are a little jarring to the eye at the moment, and that's because the fittings, I believe, have like a copper patina underneath with a black, and the clouds, or the recesses, are black. The clouds are kind of showing through the patina a little bit on here. The Tsuba is made of bronze, I believe, and the crescent moon has a yellower shape, and then the Habaki and the Seppa are brass, and so they have kind of a more goldy tone. Now, as this stuff patinas and ages, it will change. Also, I generally don't like everything that isn't all the same color. So anytime the metal is different, then it is jarring to my eye. But on other projects, I've really come to appreciate it. And thematically, I think this all comes together well. I happen to really like the general look of it, but the colors of metals are a little bit jarring to my eye. That would be the only complaint. That's not something I can do anything about, though, because the fittings are made of a different material than the Tsuba, which is made of a different material than the rest of the stuff. Now, I could have had sword friend Alfredo make a Tsuba out of brass, and it would have maybe blended a little better. I chose not to do that. The one that he showed me in a photo was cast in bronze. I liked it, and I said, I want the same thing. So he did that. It has some nice patina on it. He also made Menuki that match, which I thought was great because I didn't have any Menuki that would thematically go. And while they're in there very subtly, they're absolutely there, and they have the same kind of crescent moon and pill shape. So thematically, I think this all blends super well. I also think that if I was really irritated by it, I could do something to patina, or maybe take some abrasive and change the color of the fittings, make them brighter or softer if I wanted to, and that might thematically bring things together. But I'm going to give it a little time. I haven't had this sword for very long, and other swords that have different metal colorings have really come to grow on me. The Citadel, for example, has copper on it, it has brass on it, there's some silver colors on it, and I really love that sword. So anyway, I'm going to give it a little bit of time, but sometimes that bothers other people. I'm letting you know that it's on here, but I think it's something that I'm going to grow to like. The sword is mounted. It's basically got Hinari Maki with black silk over here. The Seppa, the Menuki are set in. The Samegawa here is small nodule Samegawa, lacquered black, so you can't really see the large nodules here. either if you put large nodule or really fine skin of Samigao on here, then it's kind of lost when you lacquer it black. And I think black on black was a good theme here. This is like a moonlight, kind of dark nighttime katana. And it doesn't look thematically weird. There's a little bit of bling that might stand out, but nothing grabs your eye too intensely, which I really appreciate. Anyway, as I move down, the rim of the Tsuba as well, like the crescent of the moon, is here. I think maybe potentially apply some blackening to where the clouds are, so the rim isn't one color and only the clouds. I don't know. There's a way to potentially make that a little swankier. And if I could make any criticism of sword friend Alfredo's work here, it would be that the clouds don't kind of wrap around. The rim basically loses a little bit of the dimension. It's not a problem. It's also not a problem for the price. Now, when I say that like the Tsuba and Menuki are $500-600, one, don't quote me on that. It could be a little more, a little less, but that's not a lot of money for a custom Tsuba, right? So if I were to have somebody hand file this out and not make a kind of custom casting, then fittings can easily cost. I mean, the other day I paid a set for a relatively simple set of Fuchi kashira that were custom $400 just for a simple set of steel Fuchi kashira. Getting a custom Tsuba can be a very expensive endeavor, and the people that are really, really good at making and chiseling them the traditional way, like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 is not uncommon for this kind of work if I were to have it done by hand in a more traditional way. So this is a very cost-effective way of getting something that is unique, that you don't see from the parts bin, but shares a similar level of quality of other cast fittings. So there's a downside in that it costs a little bit more, and that the detail that you might see from hand chiseled work isn't necessarily there the same way, but it is unique and it is well cast. The details here are nice and it is unique, and it is more based on like a historic Tsuba, and it just really went well. So the idea that like I can reach out to sword friend Alfredo at Bloodline Customs and say, hey, I have this kind of quirky idea for a sword, you know I have a few of them, is kind of inspiring that this can be done on a budget. And so if you have a sword katana project in mind, do know that there are some options out there. It's not inexpensive, obviously, but it is also not as expensive as some of the traditional methods are otherwise. And I'm very happy with how it came out. Now the saya down here, as we go down, has this kind of prominent symbol on the show side. So as it sits in your obi, this would be the side that faces out. And it has the same kind of pill format with a crescent moon in gold, and it's subtle. It's subtle, and also what you might not see is there's a gentle blue pearl that's kind of a little bit denser down here, and then kind of feathers up and lightens up. Now, this probably at some angles just looks black, but when you look close to it, there's little speckles and freckles of like a blue pearl that is in here, and it shows in the right light, and it reminds you of that kind of midnight blue. And so the Moonlight Night, if it were just black, it wouldn't quite sit right. It has that nice gentle blue to it, which is a subtle detail that I really appreciate. And also this pill format, because there's silver and gold, it blends in with some of the other colors here, and the saya ties in some of the metal work, and I think is like what keeps my eye from being jarred by all the different metallic colors in here. It is still a little bit, but to a lesser degree. Now, the sword is a custom sword, so the scabbard is quiet and nice and beautiful and does all the things that you would hope a custom scabbard does. The sword is a blade from Bob Engnath, and it's an interesting one. It's interesting in the sense that it's from Bob Engnath, who is unfortunately no longer with us, and Bob Engnath's blades tend to be, at least the katana that I have from him, the other examples tend to be a little bit more narrow, a little bit more Japanese. They would fit antique fittings a little bit better. This is a more robust, kind of, I don't know, more modern, thicker, wider blade. So I'm glad I had fittings that fit, but it's a more robust blade. It has a more robust nakago, and it came to me with a kind of polish. So this blade was already polished. It hasn't exactly been used, but it has some blemishes and imperfections in it. It could certainly be improved by having a new polish done on it. And it has an erratic kind of choji hamon, one that Bob was really well known for. The examples that I see from Bob Engnath very commonly have this kind of crazy erratic hamon on it. He could do a lot of different hamons, but this is one that I think he was known pretty well for. And it goes from like intense to subtle. It has a very Bob Engnath kind of signature to it. Apart from that, it's not super long. It's not my size, regrettably. At the same time, this feels wonderful. It feels stout in the hand, but at the same time, nimble and maneuverable. The custom fittings draw and sheathe well. It moves well. It's a really well done katana. I really happen to like how this one feels. I tend to favor blades that have a little bit of presence to them. Now, don't get me wrong, I like blades to train with that are gingerly and light and move delicately, but this has a presence that is not dissimilar to my bamboo mat. It's not I'm comparing it to a much less expensive sword. Bear in mind that that is my favorite sword. I've had very, very expensive swords. This one has a feeling that is similar to one of my favorites, one that I've tried to replace and can't, that is an offshoot of a mass production sword that is an outlier in the way that it feels in that particular example. This is if you like swords that have a little bit of presence to them, that aren't going to do aren't light and super nimble, but at the same time aren't clubbish or brutish or heavy, but lean towards something with a little bit more momentum, a little bit more presence. This is something that you will like. I happen to find its charm right immediately. It has a nice feeling to it. The handle is also exactly what you'd hope for. It's really rock solid, and it indexes really well. It just falls right into your fingers. You know exactly where the edge is. Instantly, this is a sword that just connected to me. I really like it, and I'm debating what I'm going to do with it because, like every custom project, once I get it, I want to keep it. At the same time, this is not the size for me. It's not the right size, but it's so pretty. It's so pretty. It came out so well. Anyway, the blade is a Shinogi Zakuri blade. It looks like probably a Chukasaki, maybe bordering on Kokasaki, but it's a little nubby, but not too much. It's reasonably sharp, but not super sharp. Again, could benefit from somebody doing a polish. Now, I also actually have another example of a polished Bob Engnath blade that recently Josiah had, and I purchased from a mutual customer acquaintance, something like that. And I have an example of what a blade might look like this, another example of a Bob Engnath blade with a very fresh polish from Josiah on it. So you can get an idea of what this could be if it had a little bit more spit shine on it. As it is, it's a great blade for a practitioner. If you wanted to go out and cut something with it, the polish is already kind of diminished a little bit, so you're not losing anything. The fittings have a charm to them, but they're not pristine examples that you have to worry about if something happens. And it is rock solid like a custom sword. I am just very, very charmed with how this came out. I know all of you are very used to me making swirly mitsudomes all over everything all the time. This one just called for something a little different, and Moonlight Night or Moonlight Spirit, Moonlighty Night or Moonlight Spirit, just has a charm to it. I really like it. And the crescent moon, I don't know, it's a classic kind of Japanese theme, one that I think resonates with a lot of people, and I'm kind of thrilled with how it came out. It is subtle but has depth. It moves well but has presence. It's very, I don't know, it is a really cool sword. So I'm very happy with it, very happy with how it came out. Sword friends, that's the extent of show and tell. Really, I don't have much else to say about it. I've given you a tour of the pieces. You got to hear some of the stories around it. As you can tell, I'm very happy with how it came out. I think it's a super cool sword for a lot of different reasons, but also just this was a really positive experience. The Mystery Man in Black came out with an awesome theme that I like, and it's pretty seldom that I don't like. I don't know that I could think of an example of work he's done that I don't appreciate when I just leave him to his own devices. But also that everything came out, that, working with sword friend Alfredo, Bloodline Customs, he was excited to make something cool. And I was excited to find something that was interesting and affordable and, that didn't break the bank. Now, all in all, this is not inexpensive swords. Swords from Bob Engnath may have used to sell at gun shows for, like a couple $100s, but nowadays they go for thousands of dollars. And this sword is probably like a $6,000-ish sword, even without a bougier or swankier polish on it. The fittings are not super expensive, though. Obviously, that can make you break the bank. It would be easy to spend $10,000 to get something like this, but done a little bit differently. So I'm thrilled with how it came out. It's obviously still a very expensive product, but something that, one, has just cool story and positive vibes going into it, and also feels really cool. I usually don't have a sword made in a theme that isn't just dumped on with swirly mitsudomes, and also that isn't my size, and I don't generally have the same excitement for it. And this kind of went in that way. I thought it would look cool as art, but I didn't think it would feel good to me, and it does. So I'm hoping that it does for somebody else. I don't know if I'm going to keep it or not, but I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if I did. It's an awesome sword. Anyway, curious to hear what your thoughts are. Do you like the name Moonlighty Night or Moonlight Spirit? Which one should I go with? Or maybe you have some other notions or ideas. Or do you like the Tsuba and the fittings? Now, incidentally, sword friend Alfredo sent along some black and gold Fuchi kojiri, kurigata, and kojiri and whatnot, some fittings for the scabbard. They just weren't quite the right size. Not his fault though, because he did not have the dimensions of the Fuchi kashira. I imagine he could do some pretty cool stuff if he was making the Fuchi kashira could more seamlessly blend, and he could have something that fit all in all. So I couldn't use those. He did send those as well though. Anyway, if you have questions about anything or want to know anything else, I suppose, let me know. But there we go, another custom project finished and absolutely charming. I'm thrilled with it. I'm never disappointed by the Mystery Man in Black. I can't think of an example I haven't been happy with, but every time I think like, I'm not sure how this is going to come out, there's always gold at the other end. Anyway, that's all I've got, folks. Cheers, and thanks for watching.